Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are. I just ate a banana, if you can believe it, and I am ready to go. Peeled it the right way, by the way, not the wrong way. Good luck figuring out what the right way and the wrong way is. We are standing by for a Donald Trump cabinet meeting. We are, of course, expecting questions about Donald Trump's claim yesterday that he is taking hydroxychloroquine, as he says it. And I question whether he is. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I have filmed, but not uploaded, a full urban garden tour. I show people my cucumbers. I expose my tomatoes, the full thing. I've filmed it. It's fantastic, but I have not yet uploaded it. And I probably will upload it to my Instagram a little bit later today or maybe tomorrow. You would be impressed with the size of some of my tomatoes that I've got already. And the cukes are moving a little slowly, but we will certainly get to those. Let's go through some of the latest numbers. Oh, I do have one super chat before I jump in. And feel free to get your super chats in. Zesty African, our good friend Zesty, says, David Pakman, more like David the Dude, man. Your favorite three presidents, hope all is well. Thank you. I don't do lists or superlatives. I really couldn't tell you my favorite three presidents. Eras are so different. It's hard to compare. How do you compare Washington to Obama? You really can't, other than skin color. Corey Keene says, which president lied the least in the last 30 years? Which president lied the least in the last? So that would get us back to 1990. Bush 1, Clinton, Bush 2, Obama, and Trump. I mean, listen, I think Trump lied the most. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. Bush and Clinton were in an era where the lies presidents, Bush 1 and Clinton were in an era where the lies presidents were willing to tell were not as egregious as what is now seen. It's very hard. That's a really tough question. I don't know the answer. Walker Anderson says, check yourself. Cuomo said yesterday they are only using a third of their testing capacity per day. Who cares about global pet capita? This Walker Anderson person spends a lot of money just trying to antagonize me and catch me. And it's so boring. Ken Clive says, this is for your watermelon fund. Also, things are starting to look better in LA. Social distancing is proving itself here. Infection rate is steadily decreasing. Take care, David. Jamal Swift is back. Jamal says, hey, homie. Hey, great to see you, Jamal. Haven't seen you around for a bit. Matt Chavez says he's fed Hydroxycut, but doesn't know the difference. Right. Yeah, I actually have let me see if I can find it. I put a poll on my Twitter page, which you can participate in, which asks, is Trump taking hydroxychloroquine? Yes, he thinks so, meaning he's taking something, but somebody gave him a placebo, or no, and he knows he isn't. So you can actually vote, and that is one of the options, that Trump is taking something else and doesn't know it. Only roughly one out of 10 of my Twitter followers thinks Trump is actually taking hydroxychloroquine, and we'll get to more about that momentarily. Okay. I guess I got through the early super chats, so let me step away from those and then I'll get right back to them. Latest coronavirus numbers. Officially, we are potentially just hours from our 5 millionth official case globally, and we are well past 320,000 deaths at this point in time. Looking at yesterday's numbers for the most new cases, of course, USA number 1. But Brazil increasingly a hotspot, Russia increasingly a hotspot, and India increasingly a hotspot. Those are three places that are increasingly having a tough go of it. And we are going to be following them very closely. Here in the United States, we are approaching 1.6 million official cases. And before we know it, we will be at 100,000 deaths, maybe in about a week or so, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. Yesterday, in terms of new cases, Illinois now dramatically out in front in terms of new cases. You see New Jersey, California continues to get worse. New York and Massachusetts have had problems for a while. Texas now regularly at the top of the list. Florida and Virginia are regularly making appearances near the top. And in terms of testing per capita, Rhode Island continues to be the tops. followed by North Dakota, New York, Massachusetts, New Mexico now regularly testing a lot of people, and so on down. In terms of total tests, on Sunday, we did for the first time hit 400,000 tests here in the United States, fell almost 100,000 short of that yesterday. And of course, as you know, we probably need to be testing between 1 and 5 million people a day. The new talking point from the Trumpist right and Trumpists themselves are there's more capacity than people to test. The answer is only if you are restricting tests to people with symptoms or people exposed to people with symptoms. We need to be doing widespread surveillance testing. If we have all of this excess capacity, start a surveillance program. Tell people if you're 65 or older, you can now get a test regardless of symptoms, regardless of whether you've been exposed to someone with symptoms. Start a program where you say, next week, everybody with last names A through E, go in and get a test. Expand who should be going and getting tests. It's very easy to say, as you expand capacity to some degree, we have too many tests. If you say you can only get a test if you have symptoms or know you've been around someone who has the virus. Let's start getting more people testing, surveillance testing. That's what South Korea did. That's what Taiwan did, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yesterday, Donald Trump did claim to be taking hydroxychloroquine. Take a listen to this.
Whistleblower, and this other guy with the hydroxychloroquine, okay? Well, he went out, and he's the one that approved the hydroxychloroquine. He's the one that signed the application. He also happens to be, if you look, see whether or not, I won't put it on me, I'll put it on you. See whether or not he was a big contributor to the Democrats.
Right.
See whether or not he wanted the Democrats to win. No, there's a lot of bad things coming out about him. But you people don't want to write the news, you know. But if you look, but he's the one that signed the application, the very important form. He signed it. Now, if he doesn't believe in it, why would he sign it? And a lot of good things have come out about the hydroxy. A lot of good things have come out. And you'd be surprised at how many people are taking it, especially the frontline workers, before you catch it. The frontline workers, many are taking it. I happen to be taking it.
Hydroxychloroquine?
I'm taking it, hydroxychloroquine.
When?
Right now, yeah. A couple of weeks
He's high right now on it.
ago, I started taking it.
So he says he started a couple of weeks ago. The proper dosage of hydroxychloroquine is 1 dose per week. You normally would start it a week before you go to a country where you risk catching malaria. It's 1 dose per week. So when Trump says I've been taking it for a couple of weeks, does he mean he got 2 doses? Is he doing the Sean Hannity method where you take it daily, which is, of course, very, very dangerous? We don't know. But check out this letter that was put out. The letter put out by his doctor doesn't actually say that Trump is taking it. It says, as has been previously reported 2 weeks ago, one of the president's support staff tested positive for COVID-19. The president is in very good health and has remained symptom-free. He receives regular COVID-19 testing, all negative to date. And then it says, after numerous discussions he and I had regarding the evidence for and against the use of hydroxychloroquine, we concluded the potential benefit from treatment outweighed the relative risks. That's a theoretical conversation. This doesn't actually say, and so we put Trump on it. And then it says, you know, in consultation, we will continue to follow the literature on hydroxychloroquine. The letter that they put out, supposedly to defend that Trump is on it, doesn't actually say Trump is on it. So take that, take that for what it's worth. I don't know that Donald Trump is actually taking hydroxychloroquine. We are in the room here and we are standing by for a Donald Trump cabinet meeting. I do want to make sure that you consider yourself invited to grab a membership on my website at joinpacman.com. It's in vogue to always pretend like everything is going fantastic, but I've been upfront. We lost 722 members in March and April because of the virus. We've already lost about another 175 in May. If you can afford to support the work we do, I'm talking about $2 a month. That's the ask. It's not anything big. Grab a membership at joinpacman.com. That coupon code right there, 2020 now, saves you 66%. That makes it $2 a month or $20 for the year. That's like $1.80 a month. Okay. I don't want anybody's last dollar. We're all in this together. We're upping our weekly production. Nobody has been laid off, no reductions in hours. And it is primarily funded by those memberships. And I will thank everybody, every single one of you who grabs a membership today. I will thank you more than profusely on stream. Just you wait. Just you wait. Okay, a couple of other super chats coming in. Walker Anderson says, I am not antagonizing. I am correcting you that the United States has surpassed demand with testing capacity. Cuomo confirmed this yesterday. That's if you do no surveillance testing, and we should be doing surveillance testing. You don't fight this by only testing symptomatic people. You fight this with surveillance testing. It could be up to half of people are asymptomatic, so we still do not have that level of capacity. Joe Rader says, David, as a prepper, have you considered putting in a solar system with battery backup? Tesla and others have made it feasible technologically and financially. I have thought about it. I'm not really a prepper. I'm a casual left-wing prepper, thanks to coronavirus. I have thought about solar. Are people clapping because Trump is coming in? Let's see. Oh, he is here.
So welcome to our cabinet meeting, and every member of my cabinet is working.
Let's actually switch over to the White House feed. I think it's a better feed than the Fox News feed. Slightly delayed, but we'll be okay, my friend. Thanks to Ann Catone, by the way, for the membership. Thanks, Ann. You are number one. Number one in my book. Number one for life. Thanks, Ann.
So welcome to our cabinet meeting, and every member of my cabinet is working tirelessly to defeat the invisible enemy that should have never happened to our country, should have never happened to the world.
It came from China.
It's a disgrace. Could have been stopped at the source, but they decided not to do that. But we're going to safely reopen our country and our economy, and it's happening very rapidly. And it's happening, interestingly, when numbers are actually going down. You look at Florida, the state of Florida, did a great job. You look at Georgia, you look at others, they're open, and some are doing extremely well.
Florida, again, accused of just lying about the numbers.
And the numbers are going down. The numbers that we have been talking about for the last 2 months, they're actually going down, so it's really terrific. In our drive to crush the virus, the U.S. has completed nearly 12 million tests, and that number today is almost 14 million. Nobody's close. Germany would be second with approximately 10 million less than us. And
I don't know where he
also
gets
have the best
14.
tests.
We're at 11.8.
South Korea is doing very well, but we're at 14 million, and they're at numbers that are very small by comparison. What has been done with testing, what's been done with ventilators, what's been done with the distribution of product has been incredible. We've made a lot of governors look very good.
Yeah.
We've actually made all of the governors look very good. Some have done a good job, but we've made them all look very good. We got them equipment, and they
Thanks
got
to
them.
Thor and Russell, by the way, for signing up on my website. Thank you.
It's like nobody would have thought possible. Vaccines are moving quickly into phase 1 and phase 2 trials, and trials of dozens of therapies and cures are underway, and we're making tremendous strides with therapies, cures, and vaccines. I think we're way ahead of schedule. And you probably heard logistically, we have our military engaged. And as soon as we have whatever it is that we're going to have, whether it's therapeutic or vaccine.
That's Thor and Russell, not Thorin.
The military is ready to go. They can deploy hundreds of thousands of men and women a day. And now what they're going to be doing is they're going to be doing the vaccine, which we are geared up for even before we have it. But the chances of us having it are extraordinary.
Thanks to Michael, too.
Secretary Azar will update us on all that we're doing to safeguard Americans. Be talking in a second.
That'll be a
treat. To protect our people and defeat the virus, we must also defend the health of our nation's economy.
Are these cigars to Trump's left? Is he going to pass out stogies and everybody's going to cheer, celebrate the victory?
Ahead of schedule. Secretary Carson will update us on the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council.
That'll be exciting.
And Ben, you've done a fantastic job. We appreciate it. He's looked at HUD much differently than people that would have been in the pure real estate business, and he has a way of seeing things that's different and really good for our country.
Right.
And Ben's working on very hard, different plans to restore health and prosperity to disadvantaged and minority communities, and that's really working out well. One of the things we're very proud of is opportunity zones. Tim Scott of South Carolina came to me with a proposal, and few people understand how successful the opportunity zones have been. It's a great tribute to Tim and to others in the Senate that helped us with that. The pandemic has shown once again the vital importance of economic independence and bringing supply chains back from China and other countries. I probably got elected. One of the primary reasons was that. Make America great again, America first, call it whatever you want.
No, he mostly got elected because he tricked 63 million people, thanks to Kim and Holger as well.
Go to 12 countries to build a car. I want to build a car from one country. We make the parts. To achieve this goal, we've slashed red tape and bureaucracy and unleashed the largest industrial mobilization since World War II, especially when it comes to big things like a ventilator. It's a very big, clumsy, highly sophisticated.
It's not that big and it's relatively simple.
Lines, we're the talk of the world. We're supplying them to other countries. We're helping other countries that are going through this plague, and they're never going to be able to do ventilators. So it's really been an incredible thing what's happened. It's the biggest mobilization since World War II.
Thanks, Terry.
And we're fighting for the livelihoods of American workers, and we must continue to cut through every piece of red tape that stands in our way. And that's why this is such an exciting meeting, beyond being a cabinet meeting, which is always good.
Right.
Because with millions of Americans forced out of work by the virus, it's more important than ever to remove burdens that destroy American jobs. In a few minutes, I will sign an executive order instructing federal agencies to use any and all authority to waive, suspend, and eliminate unnecessary regulations that impede economic recovery.
Meaningless executive order.
Leave it that way. We want to leave it that way. In some cases, we won't be able to, but in other cases, we will. And you've heard me say many times, I've said, and I've said it very strongly, that regulations, we've done more regulation cutting than any president in history, whether they're there for
That's a lie.
4 years, 8 years, or in one case more.
That's an outright lie, and it's nothing to brag
We've
about.
done more regulation cutting. I don't mean just in a year or 2 years. I mean, in the 3.5 years that we've been here, we've cut far more regulations by a factor of a lot than any other administration,
Total
any other
dishonesty.
presidency. So that's really something.
It's just not true.
I'm directing agencies to review the hundreds of regulations we've already suspended in response to the virus and make these suspensions permanent where possible. I'm also instructing agencies to use
this is where no one applies critical thinking. Like, give us a specific regulation that is right now causing a problem in terms of coronavirus. If we identify things that need to be suspended, let's do it. And some have been identified by big programs, just getting around normal operating procedure. But this vague thing of we're struggling because of regulations. Give us a specific regulation that is causing a problem right now.
Years and years to build a simple roadway or a simple building, and it would end up costing an absolute fortune, many, many times what it should cost. And it would take years before you could even seek final approval. 5 years, 7 years, 20 years, 21 years, a certain highway built recently, a small highway. I would call it a road. 21 years to get it approved. And then by the time they get it approved, it costs.
So it actually looks like a lot of the regulations he wants to reduce have nothing to do with the virus, and they're going to be handouts to his construction industry friends. Not surprising.
With Elaine and Department of Transportation, we're down to a 2-year period. We want to see if we can do better. We have roads in there for 18, 17, 20, 21 years, over the years. I'm not blaming Elaine for that. I'm just saying over the years there have been roads that have gone through a process for
That's Elaine Chao,
many
Mitch
years,
McConnell's
roads
wife.
and highways. So we're going to be getting it down to a year. And maybe it's not going to get passed for environmental reasons or safety reasons.
Yeah.
But we're going to
You know what we want to do just to help my construction buddies? It's not environmentally sound, and it's not sound in terms of safety. So it may go nowhere, but I am going to sign this executive order today.
Did you hear what I said? Soon to be permanent director. Okay, that's a big statement. Some people would say that's big news. He's done a fantastic job. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Well, we have to get him to approve, but we'll give you a congratulations just prior to approval, right?
Sure.
So you're doing great. Thank you very much. So Acting OMB Director Roosevelt will present details on this effort, and we'll go into that. So Russ has done a great job on exactly what he used to come into my office and he'd say, I think we can cut a lot of different things in terms of regulation.
Trump's going to chug some hydroxy soon.
A better product. It's actually going to give us a better result. And we're adhering to the environmental impact studies and all of the other things we have to do to get these permits. So Russ Vought, thank you very much. I want to once again thank every member of the cabinet for your commitment to helping our nation
your guess is
reopen, to recover and rebuild. I'd like to now ask a man who's done a fantastic job as the head of the task force. He's worked literally, I think literally 24 hours a day sometimes to make sure everything's gone well. Today we had a really great article by Rich Lowry who talked about the tremendous job that we've done.
Rich Lowry is supposedly a smart conservative. Watch a recent interview he did, I forget where he tries to explain Obamagate. It might have been an article now. If he's the smartest they've got, they're in trouble. We're all in trouble.
Very much, because there's been a very false narrative. People have no idea what an incredible job the people in federal government have done, and that includes generals and admirals and lots of others. So
Sergeants, not so much.
I want to thank Mike Pence for the great job you've done, Mike, and please say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your great leadership.
Mr. President, and I think everyone around this cabinet knows that from the first day of this administration, you've made it clear that you have no higher priority than the safety and security of the American people. In January, when you took the unprecedented action of suspending all travel from China, before there was a single
just because what he says doesn't matter, I'm going to take this opportunity just to thank a few of the people who just signed up on my website. I think you're all much more important than Mike Pence. Danielle Jones-Caridian, as well as Terry Bradbury, Kim Dycombe, Holger Montesdoka, as well as Roslyn Woody, Michael Golden, Thor Soley, Russell Berkeley, and Ann Catone. Thank you, guys. I really do appreciate your support, and I like you all so much better than I like Mike Pence. And you can join them with a membership at joinpacman.com.
Hey, Mr. President, that you asked me to lead the White House Coronavirus Task Force. We have focused on the health of the American people. It would be on March 15th at your direction that we released the White House coronavirus guidelines for America. We asked a lot of the American people.
Dear God.
And the American people responded. 15 days would become 45 days, and in that time, it was our objective, Mr. President, as you made clear, to save lives, to slow the spread, to flatten the curve. And because of what the American people did, because of the direction that you gave, and all of the dedicated members at HHS and FEMA and all of those around this table who served on the task force, because of the partnership that you forged with every governor of both political parties across the country, we've made great progress. That being said, Mr. President, I know that you believe, as we all do, that one life lost is too many. And we grieve today for the loss of more than 90,000 Americans to the coronavirus. But at a time like this, the first cabinet meeting that we have had since the advent of this epidemic, it's important to remember that when we asked the American people to make all of those sacrifices, the estimates before you were that if we did nothing, we could lose between 1 million and 2.2 million American lives.
So Pence is being honest. If we did nothing, doing nothing was not a chance, because by the time they decided to do something, many governors already had, which would drop that death toll. So Pence is actually knowingly or unknowingly admitting the do nothing scenario is an irrelevant scenario. No one would do nothing because governors already had done stuff.
Today, we recognize the progress that we have made. Among the progress that we made, Mr. President, in flattening the curve and slowing the spread was preserving, as you directed, the capacity of our healthcare system. One of the great concerns that we had early on was that our healthcare system, our hospitals would be
Ivanka back
overwhelmed
here?
by the coronavirus. That did not occur,
I think this
Mr.
is
President.
DeVos.
Truth is, as you've reflected many times, because of the ingenuity of the American people, because of our partnership with states, because of a great logistics team that worked with the task force, no American who has needed a ventilator was ever denied a ventilator.
Unclear
in the
that
United
that's
States.
true.
It is an extraordinary accomplishment. And the report that I received today is that the national stockpile now has more than 15,000 ventilators. And
That's interesting,
because of
because
the
3
public
days ago it was 13,000. So, like, did they actually just take delivery of 2,000 ventilators? If so, where did they come from? I thought we were sending ventilators to other countries. How did our supply go from 13 to 15 if we're sending hundreds and hundreds of ventilators to other countries? Just one of the questions we'll never get an answer to.
front lines of this pandemic. And on the subject of testing, Mr. President, when you tapped me to lead this task force, we had fully done, under the old system of public labs, we had fully done only 8,400 coronavirus tests at the end of February. But as you just reflected, because of the public-private partnership that you formed with commercial labs across the country, we've now performed nearly 12 million coronavirus tests and more than 400,000 in a single day this past weekend. And Mr. President, as I'll share with the team, as we're increasing testing, the good news to Americans is, nevertheless, cases are going down. You reflected on that in your visit to the Capitol today and in your opening remarks. And in that, I hope, despite the heartbreak and the hardship that we have all endured, I hope the American people can sense that they've made progress. That as we continue to scale testing all across the country, our team with Admiral Giroir at the helm and FEMA at the helm estimates that we'll be able to conduct maybe 40 to 50 million tests a month by this September. But even as testing is expanding across the country, we're
Understand that's the level we need to even really look at reopening. They're saying it could be 4 more months till we get to that level.
People that's been challenged, Mr. President, as you rightly observed, businesses large and small, who have had to shutter their operations. We heard from restaurant owners earlier this week.
Thanks, Dan and
with
Kayla,
the great
for the
work of our Secretary of the Treasury and your leadership, Mr. President, $188 billion in loans have been approved to small businesses. Nearly $583 million have been awarded through community health centers, all 50 states. We have been there at the point of the need for businesses large and small. We have been there for vulnerable populations. And at your direction, Mr. President, we'll continue to lean forward in that fight. The action that you're taking today with signing the executive order is going to make it even more possible for us to build this economy back again for the American people. And it was in that spirit that 1 month ago, Mr. President, as I close, you directed the White House Coronavirus Task Force to release guidelines.
You know, Mike Pence says Mr. President so much to re-engage Trump's attention, because otherwise Trump just, you know, he's looking at papers and looking around.
States, as of today, are partially reopening their economies. And the American people are responding and breathing that free air again. They're doing it responsibly. They're enjoying the opportunity to be out in many states, to enjoy restaurants, businesses opening back up. The big 3 automakers went back to work this last Monday in Ben Carson's hometown of Detroit. And America is on its way back through a great, great season of hardship. It's a testament to the resilience of the American people.
Wow.
So, Mr. President, you charged the White House Coronavirus Task Force to have one mission, and that was save lives. To have one team, and that was to forge relationships all across the country. Because of your leadership, because of the great work of this cabinet, because of governors around the country, but mostly because of our incredible healthcare workers and the cooperation of the American people, we've slowed the spread, we flattened the curve, and we are reopening
I guess we won, guys.
And Mr. President, I'm proud to report to you that we're on our way. And I promise you this entire team is going to continue to work with governors around the country at your direction until we bring the American economy all the way back, as you often say, bigger and better than ever before. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mike. And again, thank you very much for doing a great job. So I'm going to sign this now, and then Ben and Steve will speak, and then we'll go around the room a little bit, and we'll say what we want. I'd like to congratulate Rick Grinnell for doing such a fantastic job as acting. I don't think you want to be permanent, so I think you're very happy to be acting, but what a job. I think you'll go down as the all-time great acting ever at any position. So thank you very much, Rick. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Would you like to say something? Go ahead, please.
Sure. I would just say greetings from an Intel community that is very interested in providing policymakers, everybody around this table, with raw intelligence that is not politicized in any possible way. And I have to tell you, Mr. President, that I have heard from hundreds of members of the current Intel community
That's funny.
who are extremely pleased with transparency of their work. And that's what they're shooting for. That's what they want to provide to policymakers, is information that is not politicized by politicians in any way on any side of the aisle, but to be able to protect their intelligence estimates. We all know that they're estimates, and they are proud to give them when not manipulated by others.
Well,
Excuse
we appreciate
me.
your great work. Thank you, Rick, very much.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to sign this now, and so this is regulations are going to be cut, and the potential is that you're going to find regulations that nobody has ever thought of before, because you're going to be doing it yourselves, and this
So
gives you
guys,
greater.
understand this. So this is an executive order that regulations should be examined and unnecessary regulations should be cut. Trump vaguely mentioned it sometimes takes a long time to build roads. Nothing else has been specifically pointed out. Trump shouldn't need to sign this for agencies to be able to evaluate how they should be run, which is essentially what we're talking about. This is complete gaslighting. It's completely meaningless. It's a photo op. Trump has his pens. And, unfortunately, this stuff does seem to bamboozle some of his followers into thinking he's doing stuff.
But it's very, very important. Elaine, you can do things that nobody would believe in your department, Department of Transportation. So good luck, and I'm signing this. It gives you tremendous power to cut regulation.
Yeah. This is total bullshit. I think most of you understand that.
Here you go, Ben. Here, take it.
Handing out Sharpies. This is so stupid. By the way, that signature is getting more erratic.
Okay, Ben, would you like to say something, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. And a big thank you to all the cabinet members. Almost everybody has been deeply involved in the refocusing of the Opportunity and Revitalization Council.
Sleepy
And,
Ben Carson.
Jared and Christian and Brooke also big help.
Oh, Brooke, yeah.
Just as was done during the greatest generation, many sectors of our society are being reconfigured to meet the singular goal of winning our war against this invisible enemy. Companies that made bedding linen are now making masks, and plants that
David, for the
produce vehicles are now producing ventilators. I worked at some of those plants growing up in Detroit. And now the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council, which was formed by you to help long-forgotten communities achieve economic opportunity, will refocus and expand to help America's hardest-hit communities and achieve economic recovery, overcome health disparities, and thrive through educational advancement. Education being the ticket. It doesn't matter where you came from, you get a good education, you can write your own ticket. Since your historic Tax Cuts and Job Act, billions of dollars from the private sector have been invested in these designated opportunity zones, which are home to nearly 35 million people. Through this initiative, we've fostered partnerships between people who seldom sit down together. We're talking about business leaders, community leaders, faith-based leaders, housing advocates, investors,
Can you get on
builders,
mic?
state and local and federal officials. The Revitalization Council, which I have the privilege to chair, alongside our executive director, Scott Turner, who's here in this room somewhere.
Thanks, Luke.
Oh, there he is over there.
Yep.
Okay. Has played a big role in the success, identifying more than 270 different federal actions to support and increase investment in opportunity zones through things like grant preference points, loan qualifications, reduced fees, eligibility criteria modifications, and a number of other incentives. And at your direction, we're now taking our considerable capacity to discover opportunity and drive recovery in disadvantaged and minority communities that are disproportionately affected by COVID-19. Based on our work and analysis, the Revitalization Council is identifying diverse policy approaches in areas including housing, education, technology, broadband, workforce, entrepreneurship, health, and long-term community development. And under your leadership, this administration has shined a light on the forgotten men and women
Right.
whose job prospects and health disparities are often hidden in the shadows. Mr. President, you've been a champion for all Americans, especially our low-income and minority communities.
What?
And we're committed to continuing your work, not only to restore, but to advance the historic gains and prosperity many enjoyed before this global epidemic. Your council will not only continue its focus to bring more jobs and better jobs, but it will also expand to better fortify public health services that will improve medical and social health outcomes and uplift our most distressed communities. The American people will come out the other side of this crisis stronger and more determined than ever. Thanks to the authority you have vested in the Revitalization Council, we will leverage these powers to heal America's hardest hit communities and return to prosperity as safely and swiftly as possible. And thank you for not giving in to the naysayers and to the people who use fear to control people, and instead giving people hope,
Right.
not with just your words, but with your actions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. You know, I had a run against him, and he was very tough.
Yeah.
And he was even tougher when he'd run onto a stage holding a Bible up in the air. That was tough. I said, that's tough to beat. But I said, if I'm ever so lucky, I have
Not
to get him
amongst
in the
thinking
administration.
voters.
So that's what happened, and you've done a great job. Thank you very much. Steve, where are we, and what are we doing?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm pleased to report your administration has been hard at work implementing the CARES Act. We've really made incredible progress over the last month, working on putting over $3 trillion into the economy. Unprecedented amount of support for American business and American workers. And I just want to highlight a few of the things. Working with SBA, we were able to develop the Paycheck Protection Program from scratch. That's now impacted over 4.3 million companies, impacting over 50 million workers.
Mnuchin's really a disgrace to the last name. So Mnuchin, the root of that last name, it's a Jewish last name. There's an Argentinian actor, Juan Minuchin, which it's essentially the same last name. It's like a Spanish-ified version of that last name. Fantastic actor, and he's in some great programs. And every time I see Mnuchin, I'm like, man, what a disgrace to the name this guy is.
Reserve, I have approved 9 special facilities, totaling about $2.5 trillion. That's about half of our capacity. And in particular, I'd just like to highlight the Main Street Lending Program, which is for small and mid-market companies, will be up and running by the end of this month. And then I would just comment on the economic impact payments, Mr. President, have really had a big impact. We've delivered over $239 billion to 141 million Americans. And I want to highlight, we couldn't be more pleased, 114 million of those we did direct deposit into people's accounts. We did 27 million checks. And Mr. President, we now have developed debit cards. So in an effort to expedite money to people even quicker in a very safe way, I'm pleased to show you what a debit card looks like with your name on
Trump,
it,
you
Mr.
probably don't know what
President.
this is.
Now, there's no money for you on it. This is a blank debit card, but I want you to see.
Now, if you get a debit card, can you deposit the money into your bank account? Because it seems some people may want to deposit the money into their bank account. I don't know how you pay rent or a mortgage with a credit card, a debit card.
Do I sign
thank
the
you very
letter
much.
again or not?
The next time we send money, you'll get to send another letter.
All right, thank you, Steve. Steve's had a great career. He had a great educational career, a tremendous student, and went on to very, very tremendous business success. And
What a good boy.
all of that experience was necessary for what you're doing, right? But there's nobody better with money and controlling
Tom, for
money
the
and
sign-up.
handling money, so I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, please say a few words.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Your top priority has always been the health, safety, and well-being of the American people as we've been going through this pandemic.
Just as a reminder, remember at one point Alex Azar hired a former Labradoodle breeder to run the day-to-day coronavirus operations.
The roaring Trump economy, and we have the tools to do that. The right mindset for reopening is not about balancing health versus the economy. It's actually about balancing health versus health. By one estimate, the virus-induced recession will see an extra 65,000 deaths from suicide, drug overdose, alcohol abuse in the coming years, possibly even more. States are seeing a decline in the reporting of child maltreatment because kids aren't at school. They're not seeing doctors and teachers who would otherwise report maltreatment in the home environment, and so it goes unaddressed. Mammograms are down 87%. Colonoscopies are down 90%. Approximately 1.7 million new cancer cases are diagnosed per year in our country, and if we're seeing an 80% drop in cancer cases identified, we could already have 300,000 or more undiagnosed cancer cases as a result of this crisis. A CDC report found a 60% reduction in vaccine administrations, including for our kids.
This is actually for real. This is actually really a concern, and we do have to figure that out, how to get that going again. And Massachusetts is starting to get it going. This is not an area where they are wrong.
We have the surveillance tools, we have the testing tools, we have the containment methodologies and resources. We are developing therapeutics and we're developing vaccines. So we have the strategy and the recipe to support the safe reopening of our economy. And for the sake of Americans' health and well-being, we've got to support this and move ahead with safe reopening. I mentioned some of the physical health risks of keeping our country closed down. But we have here today with us our Assistant Secretary for Substance Abuse, for Mental Health and Substance Abuse, Dr. Ellie McCants-Katz, who's a
So before that person talks, in Japan, suicides are down 20% because work and commuting are such sources of stress. In Japan, suicides are down 20%. That's not what Trump predicted.
If that's okay, Mr. President.
We'd love that. Please, Doctor.
Mr. President, Vice President Pence, members of the Cabinet, and colleagues. Turn it on.
Okay.
As I've listened to states and communities struggle with mental illness issues that have arisen as a result of the virus, I wanted to ensure that governors yesterday heard these concerns from a medical perspective. As my physician colleagues on the task force have been careful to rightly note, their perspective and advice centers on one aspect of the pandemic, virus containment. However, even medically, it is not the sole perspective. I felt that it was important to offer the governors a different, albeit equally important, medical perspective. As such, I made the following remarks. It is my privilege to serve as the Assistant Secretary for Mental Health and Substance Use, but today, I really speak to you more as a psychiatrist who also happens to hold a PhD in infectious disease epidemiology. Never did I imagine the nation would be experiencing the coinciding of mental health issues and infectious disease that my training addressed. The research literature is clear on the effects of quarantine and stay-at-home practices on mental health. We know that the longer the duration of these orders, the greater the intensity of the mental health problems experienced. We also know that these symptoms persist for years to come, even once quarantine is lifted. The data tell us that when the lives of adults, children, and families are drastically changed for extended lengths of time, for many, anxiety, depression, and stress disorders will become—
It's funny, now they make a huge deal out of mental health, and rightly so, but then normally they want exclusions for mental health services from health insurance coverage, and they don't take it seriously. Now it's a useful political tool to argue for reopening.
Pre-pandemic, we lose 120,000 lives a year to drug overdose and suicide. How many more lives are we willing to sacrifice in the name of containing the virus? When we look at strategies to reopen, as a medical doctor, I ask that you take into account whole health, not just one narrow aspect of physical health. We continually ask ourselves what the health costs and risks may be of reopening, but I ask, what might they be of not reopening, or reopening in such a restrictive way that American lives are not restored? Of course, containing the effects of coronavirus are critically important, but so too is preventing suicide. So too is keeping a person from being terrified to ever leave their home. So too is protecting the mental health of our nation's young people. I ask you to remember that not every home is a safe home. Not every individual can withstand the trauma of not seeing or interacting physically with loved ones. Not every parent can survive the mental anguish of not being able to feed their children because of lost employment.
See, this is so short-sighted. Like, the reason to unsafely open can't be that homes are so bad that we need to get people out. Like, if there's hunger at home, the solution isn't unsafely open schools. It's let's fix hunger at home, which we could have fixed 20 years ago, but there's no political will to do. This is all backwards.
For millions of additional Americans. And if we are doing those things, why have we decided collectively that this is okay? We've worked so hard in states and communities across this country to combat epidemics like the opioids crisis. Why are we willing to forget those efforts now or deem them less important? As a psychiatrist, I would argue that a life lost to suicide is just as important as a life lost to coronavirus. A family who loses someone to drug overdose experiences the same grief as a family who loses a loved one to coronavirus.
This is disgusting.
Let us not forget that all American lives are precious. Our citizens count on us to remember their health and safety in all aspects of life. The preservation of Americans' health and the health of our citizens cannot be measured by only one metric. Virus containment cannot be our only goal, no matter the cost to Americans. If we ignore the reality of the enormous mental health strain we've put on our citizens on the backdrop of an already overburdened mental health care system, I'm saddened but certain that the next major public health crisis of our time will be that of mental and substance use disorders, and it is not far behind. I urge you to factor this reality into your planning, and I thank you for the work you've done thus far on behalf of the millions of Americans with mental and substance use disorders.
Holy shit.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Appreciate it. Very sobering. That's tough. That's very tough. But we're getting there. We're getting back, and that's very important. Thank you. Great job. I'd like to ask Chad Wolf from Homeland Security just to say, maybe discuss the record low numbers we have of people crossing the border, our southern border in particular.
Absolutely, Mr. President.
I thought that was a joke.
We are taking, at your direction, the Vice President's direction, the task force, we've taken a number of measures that protecting public health, proactive and prudent measures at the border. Those include non-essential travel restrictions that we have with both Canada and Mexico. Those also include continued construction of the border wall system.
Nauseating
Perhaps
is
most
correct.
importantly, new measures that we've instituted along that southwest border regarding illegal border entries. And those are the numbers that you're referring to. Last month in April, we had a little under 17,000 folks that crossed the border illegally. Compare that to a year ago, April of 19 was over 120,000 individuals. So
And they were all brought out, right?
Is that because of anything we're doing, or is that the circumstances? I genuinely don't know.
Sent back.
80% of those 17,000 were removed within 120 minutes, 2 hours. The rest took just a little bit longer, but are continuing to be removed as well. So,
And that's a first. That's a first in the last 40 years.
that's absolutely right. Again, at your leadership, the task force leadership, we continue to make progress on that border.
Thank you very much, Chad.
Thanks, Chad.
Also, Mark Meadows, who's our chief of staff.
Is that guy a Giga Chad or not? I can't tell.
While he's very popular in North Carolina, he had a seat that was very easy for him to keep, and I talked to him long and hard for a while. For a long while.
And hard, dear
but
God.
He's a friend of mine, but he's going to go down as the ultimate, hopefully, chief of staff. So, Mark, it's really nice to have you. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, your work and the work of this cabinet on behalf of the American people is very evident. It's critical that we make sure that Americans are healthy, safe, secure, and prosperous. And because of the work of everyone around this table, and more importantly, your leadership, we're setting the example of how not only to tackle one of the most difficult silent killers that we've ever faced in our history, but also how to come out of that more united. And because of your executive order today, we are not only ready to reopen our country, but we're open for business once again. So I thank you for your leadership, and it's an honor to serve you and the people of this great country.
Thank you very much, Mark. You're doing really, really well. Appreciate it. And
Sounded
Bob
like you said
Lighthizer
we're
is
about to
working
open
on
our gunt.
with UK, United Kingdom, and I hear they want to very much do it, and we'd like to do it. How are you
We all
doing?
want to do it.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. We're doing well. I'm never in a hurry to do a deal, as you know. So, yeah, we'll see how that works out. I would like to report, though, that on July 1st, we'll have USMCA fully in effect, which is just in time for the reopening. We'll have the new rules that'll help American workers, farmers, ranchers. And we're now beginning to see some substantial new sales. I'll defer to Sonny, of course, on agriculture, but
Something
in the
doesn't sound
agriculture
right with
area
this
and a
guy.
variety of others because of this and the other deals that you've done. But in terms of the UK deal, we're just beginning that, and we'll see how that turns. As you said to me 1,000 times, we'll see how that turns out.
Put a mask on him.
That's what I tell him. We'll see how that turns out.
Through experience. You never know. You never know, do you? Well, we usually do. And actually, we've signed a great deal with Japan, $40 billion. We've created a new deal with South Korea, which was many, many billions of dollars. It was a defective deal. Now it's a very good deal.
It's effective.
But
Thanks, Angela,
USMCA
for
is
the
actually the
membership.
largest
Appreciate it.
trade deal ever made anywhere in the world. People don't realize the amount of business that we do with Canada and with Mexico is monumental. It's the biggest trade deal in the world. Bigger than the deal we made with China.
Is
Most
this
people
for
don't
real,
know
Jim,
that.
via Super Chat?
And
That's hilarious.
the China deal is kicking in. They're buying a lot, but I feel differently now about that deal than I did 3 months ago. And we'll see what all happens. But it's been a very disappointing situation. Very disappointing thing happened with China because the plague flowed in. Now, that wasn't supposed to happen, and it could have been stopped. So I want to thank you very much, Bob. You're doing really a fantastic deal. You have a lot of records, and one of the people I wanted to get when I was elected was Bob Lighthizer because he had the record and really had the reputation as being the best trade negotiator anywhere in the world that everybody respected. He was the authority. So I got him, and you've lived up to your
We got him,
reputation. Now
ladies
let's
and
see if you
gentlemen.
can exceed it. So you have plenty of work to do. How is it going with UK?
It's going to take
What do
4
you think?
years, 4 more years to do it.
I know.
That's all.
Well,
that's
the
all I
Boris, the
ask.
first thing Boris did when fortunately he was better because he's a great guy, Boris Johnson, Prime Minister, he called me and he wanted to talk about the trade deal. How's it going? That was his first words to me. How's the trade deal going? I said, how are you feeling? So it was really something.
Be more
but
remarkable
great
if
job.
it was his first words after waking up from, sedation, right? That would be more interesting than just the first thing he says to Trump.
A lot of traveling, working hard. Anything to say, Mike?
So I'll just add that in the course of this, we've brought 93,000 Americans back home who were stuck because travel had ceased. State Department's done fantastic work getting these Americans back to their families. There's still a few more out there.
Oh,
We've
it's
still got a little
Pompeo.
more work to do. And we're working to make sure that the global economy gets back on its feet, too. So along with Department of Homeland Security, Department of Transportation, trying
Mike
to make sure that we've got
Pompeo.
all the processes in place so people can travel again in the way that they did before this virus hit this entire world.
Good, Mike. Thanks.
Interesting
Great job.
hair.
I'd like to maybe ask Scott Turner to finish. He's somebody who's young and strong and powerful, and he's done an incredible job with opportunity zones and other things, and maybe you could finish it off, and we could take a couple of questions from
Yep,
the
finish it
media
off,
if you'd like.
Scott.
But Scott, make the media so crazed that they say, boy, are they doing a great job.
Well, thank you, Mr. President.
Someone turn on his mic, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Oh, boy.
For your leadership and Secretary Carson, Mr. Vice President. Thank you all.
My God. this
You know, I
is
was
going
sitting
down.
here listening to all the remarks and what's going on, and I'm very encouraged. And I was reminded of my time from playing Pee Wee football all the way to the NFL.
Oh, yeah. Something about all of this
And one of
does
the
remind me
greatest
of Pee Wee
times
football,
that
for
we
sure.
had was the huddle. The last time I was with you all was last summer.
My
We had
God.
traveled to 21 cities in 12 weeks, and y'all encouraged me greatly. And so we finished by traveling to over 60 cities with the Opportunity Zone and the council. And much fruit came about in America because of the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council.
Just cut it, guys. Come on. I haven't muted it, just so everybody knows. Elaine Chow making a note. Get working microphone for myself. Never sit in front of this guy again. They must have muted it. I mean, I've not touched anything, guys, just so you know.
We focus the council so our vision is broader.
Mm-hmm. Incredibly inspirational message. The part that really sticks with me is when he likened this to Pee Wee football. That's really the way I...
Back to the huddle.
Yeah.
In the huddle, it was a time to refocus.
Mm.
It was a time to reset and to encourage one another. I know you got beat on that.
You what, mate?
Don't get beat on the next one. We have you. We have your back.
Mm.
We were a team. The enemy was on the other side.
What an event, guys. What an event.
In America, we are a team. The enemy is COVID. And I want to remind everybody in the room and everybody listening in America, we're all one team.
Right.
This is the huddle today. We're encouraging each other. We have each other's back. We know to anticipate what's happening on the next play. We have a great game plan. We got great leadership.
Elaine Chow,
all around the
shocked.
room. It's a tremendous team.
Mm. Yeah, imagine that this guy was I mean, not 3 weeks, but imagine this guy spent the last 24 hours, didn't sleep, anticipating this moment that the mic doesn't work.
Look out, because we're going to be victorious
right
against the enemy and have and a generational vision.
Yep.
So long after we're gone, the people that come behind us will be blessed. I want y'all to be encouraging President, all of you for your leadership.
Yeah.
And I'm encouraged to be here, so thank you.
I'm not encouraged by the sound guy, who I think we saw in the mirror at one point.
So, you know, we have a couple of seats available, congressional seats, where I'm not overly impressed with the candidate. And I think, would you like to move to a little different section of the United States? Because I could guarantee this guy would be in Congress in about 2 minutes. And, you know, I know somebody that knew Scott from the NFL. I said, what kind of a player was he? He said he was fast, but more than anything else, he was tough. He was just mean and tough.
Right.
And that's what we want. He's tough, but he's got a great heart. He's got a great heart. And I've known him now a long time, Scott. And we're lucky to have him.
So he's known Scott a long time, but he had to ask other people how he played football. Weird story, dude.
Okay, any questions, please? Yes. Steve, go ahead.
Let's go right to hydroxy. Oh, they're not mic'd up.
No, it just seems to mean less to me because, you know, we did this great deal with China. They have to buy billions and billions of dollars of product, farm product and other product. And it was very exciting, one of the biggest deals ever made. Actually, not as big as the USMCA, which surprises people, but it could have been bigger over a period of time.
Huge deal with
because,
China.
The potential
That's the
there
Hebrew
is
way
just
to say
beginning, in a sense. And it was very exciting. But once the virus came in, once the plague, as I call it, came in, I said, how did they let that happen? How did they let that happen? And how come it didn't go into other sections of China? Why did they block it from leaving Wuhan?
Right.
But they didn't block it from going to the rest of the world, including the United States. Why is that?
Mm.
Beijing doesn't have it. Other places don't have it.
They locked down.
So why is it that it was blocked very effectively from leaving that area and going into China?
Yeah.
But
we know why.
It went out to the rest of the world,
yep.
including the United States. And why didn't they let us go in and help them fix it? So I'm very disappointed in China. Yeah.
Mr. President, what happened?
Just to follow up, you've been talking about possible retaliation for that.
They've got to mic up the press. They've got to mic them up.
I don't talk about retaliation. Go ahead.
Mr. President, why haven't you announced announced a plan to get 36 million unemployed Americans back to work. You're overseeing historic economic despair. What's
I think we've announced a plan. We're opening up our country. Just a rude person you are.
Yep.
We're opening up our country.
Nasty person.
We're opening it up very fast. The plan is that each state is opening, and it's opening up very effectively. And when you see the numbers, I think...
Does he ever say that the male journalists are nasty? I'm actually not sure now.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
A lot of these jobs
Go ahead.
are not
It's enough for
coming
you.
back.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Canada has confirmed that the border is going to remain closed until June 21st, 10 days before the USMCA. Aren't you worried for the economy of the border states?
Yeah, we do, and we speak to Canada all the time. Obviously, the relationship is very good with the Prime Minister and myself and with the two countries. You know, Canada's our neighbor. We have a great relationship. We love Canada. So we're going to be talking, and at the right time, we'll open that up very quickly. That'll go very easily. Yeah, please.
It could happen before June 21st?
Yeah, it could. Sure, it could. They're doing well. We're doing well. We're both doing well.
Thank you. Mr. President, you've said repeatedly that the United States is now the king of ventilators and that we have so many that we're sending them overseas, selling them, and then in some cases actually gifting them to other countries. My question is, are you looking to use these diplomatically to strengthen ties with other nations and counter Chinese influence in some parts of the world?
No, I'm not looking to do diplomatically. I'm looking to save lives. If we can save lives of another country, that's a great thing. So I'm only looking to save lives. Probably that's good diplomatically, but I'm not looking at that. You have countries that have no chance. They have no ventilators. They don't have a capacity to build them. And we're sending hundreds and even thousands, and we have thousands now, and they're being produced at a very rapid pace.
If we're sending thousands, how did our stockpile go up by 2,000 in the last 4 days from 13 to 15,000? I just don't get it, guys. I just want to know how.
We had none, essentially. We had very few, and they were obsolete. They were broken. We're building not only a lot of them, but we have a very high-quality ventilator, one of the highest. So countries know that, and they're calling us, and they're asking for help. They need help. So I only think in terms of saving lives. The country, we've gotten some very unusual calls from people that normally wouldn't be calling us too easily, asking for help. You know, you can get swabs and you can get gowns and you can get a lot of things, but getting ventilators is very tough, very, very tough, because it's a very complex machine, very expensive machine. So we've done a very good job, and probably it does help diplomatically, but we do it for helping people's lives, save lives. Yes, please, please.
Mr. President,
yeah.
So Ford Motor Company has previously required visitors to wear masks when they visit their facilities. Do you plan to wear one when you go there on Thursday?
I don't know. I haven't even thought of it. It depends. I mean, you know, in certain areas I would, in certain areas I don't. But I will certainly look at it. It depends on what situation. Am I standing right next to everybody, or am I spread out?
That means no.
And also, you look, you know, is something a hospital? Is it a ward? What is it exactly?
Like when Pence went to a hospital and didn't wear one?
So we'll see. Where it's appropriate, I would do it, certainly. Yeah.
Mr. President, you continue to talk about helping minority communities. What specifically are you looking at to help those communities? What actions?
A lot of things.
So one of the things I was most proud of was the minority community and all of the work we've done for the minority communities. Black unemployment, Hispanic unemployment, Asian unemployment was the best ever in the history of our country. We've never had anything like it. We've never had so many African-American jobs ever in the history of our country by far.
We have a lot of black jobs right now.
In our country back, and a big focus is exactly that with the minorities, specifically
focusing on the minorities.
If you look at the Asians, they've done incredibly well.
Incredible.
Hispanics incredibly well. African Americans, record-setting every month. You know that every month.
So he was asked what he's done. He's listing ethnicities and races. That's what he's doing.
I want to get it back to that level. We had to artificially close our country. One day we did the right thing. We would have lost millions of lives if we didn't. Think of it. If we lost 100,000 lives, the minimum we would have lost is 1.2 million, 1.3 million, 1.5 million maybe, but take it to 1 million. So that would mean 10 times more that we lost already. Now, I've seen hospitals like Elmhurst, Queens, where I grew up near that. I know that hospital, where they had one day 11 body bags in a hallway, and they had some outside. And that they had refrigerated trucks coming to take bodies away.
Remember, guys,
Now,
the question was, what specifically have you done for minorities disproportionately impacted by the virus? He's talking about body bags.
Lowest number possible. It probably would have been times 20 or maybe 25. So we did the right thing, but now we have to get back to work. And we want to open up, and the people want to open up. But we've learned a lot about the disease.
Question was, what have you done for minorities? He listed races and then talked about body bags.
We've learned about the washing of hands. I used to wash my hands a lot, but I tell you right now, I wash them more.
Yeah.
We learned a lot. And we also learned how to put out the embers or the fires, whatever may come. We learned without having to close down the whole country. And we have big sections of our country that don't have much of a problem. We have some sections that don't have any problem.
Question was, what have you done specifically for minorities?
We're doing really well. And most excitingly, we're working on vaccines, therapeutics, and cures that are really moving along at a level that nobody would have thought possible. And the military, I could say Mark Esper. Okay, you know Mark Esper. He's
Question was,
become
what have you done for minorities? He's talking about the military.
Because his military is going to be distributing, whether it's...
Doesn't it seem like the question was asked a month ago at this point?
Cures or whether it's a vaccine. And by the way, I have to say all three are doing unbelievably well, but Mark and the military are going to be getting them out. So he has hundreds of thousands of people that he is immediately...
And what did you do for minorities specifically?
To deploy. They're ready to get the job done. They'll be doing it in a record business. And everything we've done with the military has been terrific. We've had admirals, we've had generals. I remember when Crying Chuck Schumer said, we should get the military involved. I said, they are. He said, we should use one of our generals. I said, we do. Our generals have done a great job, Jared, right? And our admirals have done a great... We had everybody involved. Yep. And they
Trump once ate a taco salad. That could maybe be thrown into this answer.
They fight. They're great fighters, and they fight. But, yeah, the minority communities are really going to be well served. I think we are going to get that right
Coming back around.
And this includes everybody. This includes our whole country, but right back to where it was, which was record-setting numbers.
Yep.
Are there specific options right now that you are considering for those communities?
Right now, we're opening up areas, and a lot of people are getting jobs. I heard some numbers yesterday that were really incredible. The amount, percentage-wise, of the country that opened up so quickly over the last few days. I think you're going to see some very big numbers, and I think next year is going to be an incredible year economically. You can never make up for all of the loss of life. You can never do that.
Can't do it.
From an economic standpoint, however, next year is going to be, I think it's going to be potentially a great year for us. Yeah.
Hopefully under a different president.
Please.
The FDA has said hydroxychloroquine should not be used outside of a hospital setting or...
No, that's not what I was told. No, there was a false study done where they gave it to very sick people, extremely sick people.
Here we go.
People that were ready to die.
Here we go.
It was given by obviously not friends of the administration.
It was done by your
and
VA.
The study came out. The people were ready to die. Everybody was old, had bad problems with hearts, diabetes, and everything else you can imagine. So they gave it. So immediately when it came out, they gave a lot of false information. Just so you understand, great studies came out of Italy on hydroxy. You know what I'm talking about, right? Right? Great studies came out, and the combination of the three. But we had some great studies come out. Italy, France, Spain, ourselves, many doctors, many doctors came out and they said...
Doxes.
It's great. Now, you have to go to a doctor. I have a doctor in the White House. I said, what do you think? And it's just a line of defense. I'm just talking about as a line of defense. I'm dealing with a lot of people. Look at all the people in the room.
I would love for Trump to be asked, what's the frequency of the dosage?
And it's a very inexpensive drug. It's almost pennies.
Doxes.
Very inexpensive. And it's been out for close to 70 years for a couple of different things, right? Lupus and malaria.
Elements.
And even arthritis, they say. But I think it's worth it as a line of defense, and I'll stay on it for a little while longer. I'm just very curious myself, but it seems to be very safe. But that study was a phony study put out by the VA.
Fake study.
You may want to talk about that. I mean, we could talk about that if anybody wants to, and maybe I'd ask Alex to talk about then. If you would introduce our great talented head of the VA and let him say a couple of words. But that was a phony study.
It was a VA study.
And it's very dangerous to do it. The fact is, people should want to help people, not to make political points. It's really sad when they do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so hydroxychloroquine has been approved by the FDA for decades here in the United States.
Not for coronavirus.
For the prevention of malaria, treatment of lupus, treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. And the system we have here in the United States that is once a drug has been approved and on the market, a doctor in consultation with the patient may use it for what we call off-label purposes, which are indications that are not yet proven and not yet in the label.
Trump looks like a petulant child right now.
This is the right to try president. He, for the first time, got the historic right to try legislation for experimental therapies, but that applies to our existing regime, which is approved products may be used in the judgment of a physician in consultation with their patient.
This is amazing.
As the president said, and I'll ask Secretary Wilkie to talk a bit about the VA study, there's been some studies around the use of hydroxychloroquine.
Wait, is the VA guy going to trash the VA's own study?
We are still working on some controlled studies earlier in the disease progression to see if we can measure the effectiveness of it in preventing the replication of the virus and spread in mild to moderate cases rather than the more serious, and that data is still pending.
And it's gotten very good reviews, very good from many doctors.
Great marks.
Many doctors. Secretary, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to clear up something that the media has not reported accurately. That was not a VA study.
Can you hear him? Because I think it's important. You asked the question.
Yeah,
that was not because I don't even think you're listening.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Why don't you listen to him?
That was not a VA study. Researchers took VA numbers, and they did not clinically review them. They were not peer reviewed. They did not even look at what the president just mentioned, the various comorbidities that
it was an RCT
who were referenced in that study had. I also want to echo what the Secretary of HHS said. The instructions I received from the president were very clear, and that was to preserve and protect life.
That's the best RCT we currently have.
Around this table, we've been taking this drug for years. As the president mentioned, the Department of Defense and VA have been using it for 65 years. On any given day, VA uses 42,000 doses of this drug. And what we did when this virus first hit us was to use every means necessary to help preserve life. We believed that the Congress was right, and the president signed legislation to protect life, the right to try. And we did this in consultation not only with the families of those veterans, but we did this in consultation with our doctors under FDA guidelines. So I want to knock down the phony story that this is somehow
this guy's
VA
not making
going
sense.
back on what the president told us to do, which was to use every means possible to protect and preserve the lives of our veterans. And I think, as the president mentioned, we've seen in many cases across this country. In fact, I was on the news the day that the governor of New York was asking you for tens of thousands of doses.
That's right.
We are doing everything we can.
People are going to die because of this.
The lives
Some
of
people
our
are going to die
veterans.
because of this.
And this is one of the means that we used.
Thank you. Hydroxychloroquine is used by thousands and thousands of frontline workers so that hopefully they don't catch this horrible disease or whatever you want to call it. It is a terrible virus. It's a terrible thing. And a lot of people are taking it. A lot of doctors are taking it. A lot of people swear by it. It's gotten a bad reputation only because I'm promoting it. So I'm obviously a very bad promoter. If anybody else were promoting it, they'd say this is the greatest thing ever, but because of me. So a lot of doctors swear by it. I think we can say that, Mr. Secretary. A lot of doctors think it's great. But the one thing that is true, one way or the other, whether you like it or not, it's been around for 70 years. Unbelievably effective for malaria and for lupus. And probably effective for arthritis. And what has been determined is it doesn't harm you.
That's not true.
Very powerful drug, I guess, but it doesn't harm you. And so I thought, as a frontline defense, possibly it would be good. And I've had no impact from it. I feel the same. I haven't changed. I don't think too much. And at some point, I won't take it. Might be soon, might be a little bit. It doesn't seem to have any impact on me, but it seems to be a extra line of defense. And it's gotten tremendous reviews from some people.
This is amazing.
Including many, many doctors all over the world. And you should look at some of the studies. They've been amazing, some of the studies. But that's up to people, and it's up, I think, strongly recommend to people with their doctor's advice and acknowledgement. Okay? Okay.
Cabinet taking that regimen, Mr. President?
Say it?
Is anyone else in your cabinet taking
I don't know.
particular-
I don't know. That's a personal thing as to whether or not they want to answer that question. But I think many
Anybody
of
wanna
them
raise
would
their
take it if they felt it was
Anybody taking
necessary.
it?
I also had a case where we had somebody fairly close to me, very nice young gentleman. He tested positive. And he tested positive. Plus, I deal with Mike a lot, and Mike had somebody very close to him who I also see who tested positive. So I thought, from my standpoint, not a bad time to take it.
He should also just take remdesivir
because we had the combination. Those
prophylactically. Why
two
not, right? I
people,
mean,
it's two people in
what do you have to
a
lose?
very big building with a lot of people working.
Get some plasma as
But
well.
so I thought it would be appropriate, but it has had no impact in terms of me. Okay. Any other? No, go ahead.
I just want to ask you a question on Brazil. Who's
Brazil.
which is now, yes, in third place now, catching up to Russia in second place for a number of cases. Are you finally considering a travel ban from Brazil and Latin America?
We are considering it. We hope that we're not going to have a problem. The governor of Florida is doing very, very well. Testing is in particular Florida, because a big majority come into Florida. Brazil has gone more or less herd. You know what that is, herd. And they're having problems. By the way, when you say that we lead in cases, that's because we have more testing than anybody else.
That's not
so
true.
We test much more than anybody else.
39
Again,
per
we're
capita.
close to 14 million. It was said 12 and a half. It's actually, I think, close to 14 million now.
No, it's 11.8.
And so we have 14 million tests. In Germany, if they do 2 million, that's a lot. And others are doing 1 million. So if you're testing 14 million people, you're going to find many more cases. Many of these people aren't very sick,
We're
but they still
38th
go
in
down as
testing
a
per
case.
capita.
So actually, the number of cases, and we're also a much bigger country than most.
That's what per capita
So
means.
when we have a lot of cases, I don't look at that as a bad thing. I look at that as, in a certain respect, as being
It's a great thing.
a good thing, because it means
More
our testing
cases.
is much
Cases
better.
for everybody. It's great.
So if we were testing 1 million people instead of 14 million people, we would have far fewer cases.
Right. You guys all understand we're 38th per capita. I know I don't have to explain it to you guys.
Really, it's a badge of honor. It's a great tribute to the testing and all of the work that a lot of professionals have done.
Right.
Okay?
Worried that they're going to bring their
Oh, yeah,
cases
no,
in there.
I say, as to the first part of your question, yeah, sure. I worry about everything. I don't want people coming in here and infecting our people.
Infect.
I don't want people over there sick either. We're helping Brazil with ventilators. We're sending them ventilators, okay? They need ventilators. I'm sending them ventilators. We have so many thousands of them. We're sending them.
Right.
We're sending a lot of people. No, Brazil is having some trouble. No question about it. Sweden, by the way, I've heard a lot about Sweden and the way they do. Well, you have Norway, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, that little group of beautiful countries.
Yep.
Well, Sweden took a little different attitude, but Sweden has far more deaths than the other three. You
Yes,
know
they
that,
do.
right? Do you know that? Yeah,
I'm
a lot
sure they
more
do,
death. Many times the deaths. But they did it a different way, and, I understand that too. And as Mike said very well before, there is death on both sides.
Right.
There's death on both sides. There's death in staying in a shutdown also.
Yeah. By the way, thanks
And
to everybody grabbing memberships. I do see them, and I really appreciate it.
Okay.
See, in terms of travel between the United States and Europe, but lifting travel restrictions.
I'd love it to open up as soon as it can, but we have to make sure that we're doing well and they're doing well. And in many cases we are. But, we have a very big country. We have some areas that have done incredibly well. We have other areas where the results it's tougher. New York and New Jersey are tougher. People don't realize New Jersey is the most dense state. A lot of people don't realize that. The governor's a terrific person. He's very liberal, but that's okay. He's a very liberal guy, but we like him.
Kind of like
He's a
Trump
good
before he
man,
ran
and
for
he's
president.
working very hard. But New Jersey is a very dense area, very, very dense. And I speak to Andrew Cuomo a lot, We're working very well together. And, you know, those are the two spots that have really been very heavily hit. A big portion, a big percentage, I don't know what it is, it's a very big percentage, almost half of our deaths would be to those two. Now, at the same time, the numbers, even in those two places, are coming down. They're coming down very rapidly. And I put out yesterday a statement, numbers are coming down with the exception of very little, few exceptions. The numbers are coming down all over the United States very rapidly. Very rapidly. It's a beautiful thing to watch. But it's left behind serious death. And it shouldn't have happened. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
So does Trump just sit now, or what happens now? Wow. Wow. That petulant child thing that he does. Unbelievable. Thanks to everybody who joined me. I do want to, so many great people grabbed memberships. Angela Corbett and Cameron Callahan, Samuel Carta signed up at joinpacman.com. Tom Selbichka, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Joinpacman.com is the place. 2020 now is the coupon code. David Martinez, Kayla Fish, Dan Prazen, Danielle Jones-Caridian, I think I already thanked. Really, really appreciate it. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe button. If you're on Twitch, make sure to follow my channel, and we'll be back with you. I would predict to take a phrase out of Trump's vocabulary. I believe that over the next period of time, I will be back with you very, very strongly.